The red ships came from the dark space between stars like death itself. Captain Jake Morrison watched the big screen on his ship's bridge and felt cold fear creep up his spine. The enemy fleet was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen before. "How many ships are out there?" Jake asked his crew. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park looked at her computer screen. Her hand shook a little as she counted. "Sir, I see over 300 big warships, plus maybe 1,000 smaller ones. They're all heading straight for Earth." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. Earth was his home. His family lived there. Millions of people who had never done anything wrong were about to die unless someone stopped these red ships. The enemy was called the Vekthari Empire. They had been moving across the galaxy for years, destroying every world they found. Nobody could stop them. The smart alien races with their fancy technology lasted only hours. The strong warrior races with their powerful weapons lasted only days. Jake's ship was called the U.S. Defiance. It was the newest and best ship that humans had ever built. But compared to the red enemy fleet, it looked like a tiny bug next to a swarm of angry wasps. "Captain," said Lieutenant Danny Wright from his communication station, "Admiral Carter wants to talk to you." Jake pressed a button and the Admiral's face appeared on his screen. Admiral Helen Carter was an old woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had fought in many battles before. "Jake, I want you to bring your ship back to Earth," the Admiral said. "We're gathering all our ships together. Maybe if we fight as one big group, we can slow them down." Jake shook his head. "Admiral, that won't work. I've studied all the reports from other worlds that fought these red ships. When everyone bunches up together, the enemy just uses their big weapons to destroy them all at once." "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Carter asked. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were young men and women who had joined the Space Navy to protect Earth. Some of them were scared. All of them were brave. "Let me take the Defiance out to meet them alone," Jake said. "I can hit their front ships before they get close to Earth. Maybe I can slow them down enough for people to escape." Admiral Carter's face went pale. "Jake, that's suicide. Your ship against their whole fleet? You won't last 10 minutes. "Maybe not," Jake said. "But 10 minutes might be enough to save some lives." Chief Engineer Pete Collins was standing nearby. He was a big man with oil on his hands from working on the ship's engines. "Captain, I've been making changes to our power systems. We can fight harder and longer than any ship before us. If we're going to make a stand, this is the ship to do it with." Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster nodded from her weapons station. "Sir, our new plasma guns are stronger than anything the enemy has seen from humans before. We might surprise them." Jake looked at each member of his crew. "I need to be honest with everyone. If we do this, we probably won't come home. The enemy has destroyed 47 different alien races. They've never lost a battle." A young ensign named Tim Brooks raised his hand. "Captain, my little sister lives on Earth. If there's any chance we can protect her and all the other kids, then I want to try." One by one, every person on the bridge agreed. They knew they might die, but they also knew that running away meant everyone on Earth would die for sure. "Admiral," Jake said, turning back to the communication screen, "my crew volunteers for this mission. Give us 12 hours to get ready, then we'll go out and meet them." Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then she saluted. "Good luck, Captain Morrison. Make them remember that humans don't give up easily." The next 12 hours passed quickly. Pete Collins worked in the engine room, making the ship's power system stronger than ever before. Amy Foster checked every weapon twice. Lisa Park studied every piece of information they had about enemy ships. Jake walked through the ship and talked to his crew. There were 800 people on the Defiance. Cooks, mechanics, doctors, soldiers, pilots, all of them knew what they were about to do. All of them were ready. In the cargo bay, Chief Petty Officer Roy Davis helped load special ammunition that had never been tested in real battle. The bullets were made from metal taken from destroyed alien ships. Maybe they would work better against alien armor. Lieutenant Kate Murphy worked with the ship's computer to plan their attack. She found weak spots in enemy ship designs that other races had discovered before they died. Maybe humans could use that information better. As the time came to leave, Jake stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the red enemy ships were getting closer to Earth. In a few hours, the battle would begin. "All stations report ready, Captain," Lisa Park said. "Communications clear," Danny Wright reported. "Weapons loaded and ready," Amy Foster announced. "Engines running at full power." Pete Collins called from the engine room. Jake took a deep breath. "Take us out, Lisa. Head for the asteroid belt. We'll make our stand there. The Defiance moved away from the space station where it had been docked. Behind them, transport ships were loading families and children, getting ready to run deeper into the solar system. Ahead of them, the red enemy fleet waited like a storm cloud full of lightning. Jake thought about his own family back on Earth, his wife Sarah and his 2 young sons. He had promised them he would come home safe. Now he was breaking that promise to keep a bigger promise to everyone else. "Captain," Lisa Park said quietly, "the enemy ships are entering our solar system. They'll reach the asteroid belt in 6 hours. "Good," Jake said. "That gives us time to get into position. Pete, I want you to push our engines as hard as they can go. Amy, charge up all our weapons. Everyone else get ready for the fight of our lives." The Defiance flew through space toward the asteroid belt, where 800 humans would try to do what no other race in the galaxy had managed to do. They would try to stop the red tide of death that had swallowed worlds. The asteroid belt was a dangerous place full of floating rocks and old mining equipment. Captain Jake Morrison guided his ship between the largest asteroids, looking for the perfect spot to hide and wait for the enemy. There, he pointed to a massive rock that was bigger than most cities. "We'll wait behind that one. When the red ships come through, we'll hit them from surprise." Chief Engineer Pete Collins was busy in the engine room making final changes to their power systems. He had removed every safety control that might slow them down. It was dangerous, but they needed every bit of power they could get. "Captain," Pete's voice came through the communication system, "I've got our fusion reactor running at 120% normal power. The computer says this is unsafe, but I think we can hold it for a few hours." "How much stronger does that make us?" Jake asked. "Our weapons will hit 30% harder. Our shields will be 40% stronger. And we can move 20% faster than any human ship before." Jake smiled grimly. "Good work, Pete. Keep pushing it as hard as you can." On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park was studying pictures of enemy ships. She had been looking at them for hours, trying to find weak spots. "Captain, I think I found something," Lisa said. "The red ships have very thick armor on the front and sides, but their engines in the back are not protected as well. If we can get behind them somehow, we might be able to hurt them." Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster was checking their weapons for the 10th time. "Sir, our plasma cannons are ready. We also have nuclear missiles and railguns. The problem is we only have enough ammunition for about 30 minutes of heavy fighting. Then we'll have to make every shot count," Jake said. Lieutenant Danny Wright was listening to radio messages from across the solar system. The news was not good. "Captain, the transport ships are reporting that millions of people are still trying to escape from the outer colonies. They need at least 8 more hours to get everyone loaded." 8 hours. Jake knew his ship could not fight the entire enemy fleet for 8 hours. Maybe they could fight for 1 hour if they were very lucky, but every minute they could delay the enemy would save lives. Young Ensign Tim Brooks was monitoring the long-range sensors. "Sir, I'm picking up the enemy fleet. They're moving through the outer part of our solar system now. They should reach us in about 2 hours. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all young and scared, but they were also determined. They knew what they were fighting for. "Listen up, everyone," Jake said. "In 2 hours, we're going to face the biggest enemy fleet in galactic history. We're just one ship against hundreds. The smart thing to do would be to run away and save ourselves." He paused and looked each person in the eye. "But we're not going to do the smart thing. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to stand in their way and make them pay for every mile they advance toward Earth." Chief Petty Officer Roy Davis was in the weapons storage area, preparing special ammunition. The bullets were made from alien metals that might work better against alien armor. "Captain, we're loading the experimental rounds now. We've never tested these in battle, but the scientists think they might punch through enemy shields." Lieutenant Kate Murphy was working with the ship's computers to plan their battle tactics. "Sir, I've programmed attack patterns based on what other races tried against these red ships. Most of them failed, but a few tactics slowed the enemy down before the defenders were destroyed." Jake nodded. "What worked best?" "Hit and run attacks," Kate said. "Don't stay in one place too long. Use the asteroids for cover. Focus on their smaller ships first, then work up to the big ones." "Sounds like a plan," Jake said. "Amy, can our weapons track targets while we're moving fast between asteroids?" "Yes, sir," Amy replied. "Our new targeting computers can lock onto enemy ships even while we're flying through the asteroid field. We should be able to shoot while moving." The hours passed slowly. The crew ate a quick meal and checked their equipment one more time. Some of them wrote messages to their families back on Earth. just in case they didn't survive the battle. Jake went to his private cabin and looked at a picture of his wife Sarah and his two boys, Tommy and Kevin. Tommy was 8 years old and wanted to be a spaceship captain like his father. Kevin was only 5 and still believed that his dad could beat any bad guys in the universe. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered to the picture. "I promised I would come home safe, but if I don't try to stop these red ships, you might not have a home to come back to." He put the picture in his pocket and returned to the bridge. "Status report," he called out. "Enemy fleet is 1 hour away," Tim Brooks reported. "I count 50 ships in their advance group. The main fleet is still several hours behind them." 50 ships, Jake repeated. "Well, that's better than 300. "Pete, how are our engines holding up?" "Still running hot, Captain," Pete replied from the engine room. "We're using up our fuel faster than normal, but we should have enough power for several hours of fighting." "Weapons ready," Amy Foster reported. "Sensors clear," Lisa Park said. "Communications standing by," Danny Wright announced. Jake took his place in the captain's chair and watched the main screen. Soon, red enemy ships would appear on that screen. His crew of 800 people would fight against an empire that had conquered the galaxy. "Remember," Jake said to his crew, "we're not trying to win this war today. We're just trying to slow them down. Every minute we can delay them is another minute for people to escape. Every enemy ship we destroy is one less ship that can attack Earth." The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of computers and the distant rumble of the fusion reactor, working harder than it was ever designed to work. "Captain," Tim Brooks said, his voice tight with fear and excitement, "enemy ships are entering the asteroid belt. They'll be in weapons range in 10 minutes. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Prepare for combat. Today we show the galaxy that humans don't surrender without a fight." The first enemy ship came around the big asteroid like a red mountain flying through space. It was 3 times bigger than the Defiance and covered in thick armor that gleamed like blood in the starlight. "Target locked," Amy Foster announced from her weapons station. Her finger hovered over the firing button. "Wait," Captain Jake Morrison said quietly. "Let them get closer. We only get one surprise attack." More red ships appeared behind the first one. Jake counted 10, then 20, then 30 enemy vessels moving in formation through the asteroid field. They moved slowly and carefully like hunters who knew their prey was hiding somewhere nearby. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Breaker. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Vectari, had been conquering other races for thousands of years. He had personally destroyed 6 different alien civilizations. "Commander," his sensor operator reported, "we detect one small human ship hiding behind the large asteroid designated Alpha 7. Zektar looked at the sensor display and laughed. "One tiny ship against 50 Vectari warships. These humans must be insane. Do they think one ship can stop our entire advance fleet? Should we destroy them immediately?" His weapons officer asked. "No," Zektar said. "Let's capture them alive. I want to study these creatures who are foolish enough to challenge the Vectari Empire." But Jake Morrison was not being foolish. He was being very smart. He had studied every battle the Vectari had ever fought. He knew their tactics and their weaknesses. "Now," Jake said calmly. Amy Foster pressed the firing button. The Defiance's new plasma cannons erupted with bright blue energy. The beam struck the lead enemy ship before it could raise its shields. The alien vessel exploded in a ball of fire and metal. "Direct hit," Amy shouted. "Target destroyed." The other enemy ships were caught completely by surprise. They had never seen weapons that powerful on such a small ship. For a few seconds, they just sat there in shock. Jake didn't waste those precious seconds. "Lisa, take us around the asteroid. Amy, target the second ship. Pete, give me everything the engines can handle." The Defiance shot out from behind the asteroid like a bullet. The ship moved faster than any human vessel had ever moved before. Thanks to Pete Collins' modifications to the engines, the second enemy ship tried to turn its weapons toward the human ship, but Amy Foster was already firing. Her plasma beams cut through the alien's armor like a hot knife through butter. Another red ship exploded. 2 down, 48 to go, Danny Wright called out, his voice excited. But now the enemy was recovering from their surprise. Red energy beams started shooting back at the Defiance. Jake threw his ship into a sharp turn between 2 asteroids using the rocks as shields. "They're faster than I expected," Commander Zektar admitted on his bridge. "All ships spread out and surround them. Don't let them escape. The Vecthari ships began moving in a complex pattern, trying to trap the human ship in the middle of their formation. But Jake had expected this. "Kate, begin evasion pattern Delta," he ordered. Lieutenant Kate Murphy had programmed the ship's computer with dozens of different flying patterns. Pattern Delta was designed to fight in asteroid fields. The Defiance began weaving between the floating rocks, making it impossible for the enemy ships to surround them. "Sir, enemy ship closing on our starboard side," Tim Brooks reported. "I see it," Amy Foster said. She spun her weapons to face the new threat and fired. The enemy ship's shields flared bright red as the plasma beams hit them, but the alien vessel didn't explode. "Their shields are adapting to our weapons," Amy said with worry in her voice. "Then we'll have to hit them harder," Jake replied. "Pete, can you give the weapons more power?" "Already on it, Captain," Pete Collins called from the engine room. "Diverting power from life support and artificial gravity. We'll have about 20% more firepower, but the air will get thin and everything will feel lighter." Jake felt his feet lift slightly off the deck as the artificial gravity weakened. Around the bridge, his crew had to hold on to their stations to keep from floating away. But the sacrifice was worth it when Amy's next shot punched right through an enemy shield and destroyed another red ship. The battle continued for an hour. The Defiance darted between asteroids like a fish swimming through coral reefs. Every few minutes, Amy Foster would find a clear shot and destroy another enemy vessel. But the human ship was taking damage too. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Roy Davis reported from damage control. "We've sealed it off, but we lost the backup communication center." "Shields down to 60%, Lisa Park announced. "Ammunition at 50%, Amy added. Jake looked at the tactical display. They had destroyed 12 enemy ships, but 38 were still fighting. And he could see more red dots on the long-range sensors. The main enemy fleet was getting closer. "Captain," Tim Brooks said, "I'm detecting massive energy readings from the enemy flagship. They're charging some kind of superweapon." Commander Zektar was angry. 12 of his ships had been destroyed by one small human vessel. This was embarrassing. Worse, it was impossible. No single ship should be able to fight so well against such odds. "Charge the planet killer cannon," he ordered. "We'll vaporize that asteroid field and the human ship with it. Sir, that weapon is designed to destroy planets. Using it here might damage our own ships," his weapons officer warned. "I don't care," Zektar snarled. "These humans have made me look foolish. I want them dead." On the Defiance, alarms started ringing all over the ship. "Captain, the enemy flagship is powering up a massive weapon," Lisa Park reported. "Energy levels are off the charts." Jake knew about Vecthari planet killer weapons. He had read reports from the few alien survivors who had escaped other battles. When those cannons fired, they could destroy entire moons. "How long until they can fire?" he asked. 3 minutes, Lisa replied. 3 minutes. Jake looked around his bridge at his brave crew. They had fought like heroes, but now they were about to face a weapon that could kill them all in one shot. "Pete, how's our engine core holding up?" Jake asked. "She's running hot, Captain. Real hot. I've pushed her way past safe limits. The containment field is starting to fluctuate." Jake got an idea. It was crazy and dangerous, but it might work. "Pete, what would happen if you removed all the safety controls from the fusion reactor?" "Sir, without the safety controls, the reactor would overload and explode. It would destroy our ship and everything within 50 miles. "Including enemy ships within 50 miles?" Jake asked. Pete was quiet for a moment as he understood what his captain was thinking. "Yes, sir. Including enemy ships," Jake made his decision. Lisa set course for the enemy flagship. "Full speed." "Captain," Amy Foster said, "that's suicide." "Maybe," Jake replied. "But if we can get close enough to their big ship before our reactor explodes, we might take a lot of them with us. That could save Earth." The Defiance turned toward the massive enemy flagship and began its final charge. The Defiance raced through space toward the enemy flagship like a comet with a death wish. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his chair as explosions rocked the ship. Red energy beams from dozens of enemy vessels hammered their shields. "Shields down to 30%. Lisa Park shouted over the noise of alarms and sparking control panels. "Hull breach on Deck 4, Roy Davis reported. "We're losing air fast." 22 enemy ships destroyed, Amy Foster called out as she fired their weapons at anything that got in their way. "But we're almost out of ammunition." In the engine room, Pete Collins worked like a man possessed. Sweat poured down his face as he removed every safety control from the fusion reactor. The massive engine that powered their ship was now a bomb waiting to explode. "Captain," Pete's voice crackled through the damaged communication system. "I've removed the last safety lock. The reactor will go critical in about 10 minutes. After that, nothing can stop it from exploding." 10 minutes. Jake looked at the distance to the enemy flagship on his screen. At their current speed, they would reach it in 8 minutes. That would give them 2 minutes to get close enough to do maximum damage when they exploded. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced to his crew. "In 10 minutes, our ship is going to explode. Anyone who wants to use the escape pods should go now. I won't think less of anyone who chooses to save themselves." Nobody moved. 800 people on the ship, and not one of them headed for the escape pods. "Sir," young Ensign Tim Brooks said, his voice shaking but determined. "My little sister is on Earth. If we don't stop these red ships here, they'll kill her and millions of other kids. I'm staying." "We're all staying, Captain," Amy Foster added. "Let's finish this." On the bridge of the Worldbreaker, Commander Zektar watched the human ship charge straight at him. He could not understand it. The small vessel was badly damaged and clearly outgunned. "Why didn't it retreat?" "Sir, the human ship is heading directly for us," his tactical officer reported. "They're not even trying to dodge our weapons." "Are they surrendering?" Zektar asked. "No, sir. They're still firing at our escort ships, and I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from their engine core." Zektar's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the sensor readings. "They're overloading their reactor. They're going to ram us and explode." For the first time in his long career of conquest, Zektar felt something he had never experienced before: respect for an enemy. These humans were willing to die to protect their world. None of the other 47 alien races had shown such determination. "All ships focus fire on the human vessel," he ordered. "Destroy it before it reaches us." Every enemy ship in the area turned their weapons toward the Defiance. The space around the human ship lit up with red energy beams and explosive missiles. The Defiance's shields failed completely, and enemy fire began tearing chunks of armor off the hull. "Hull breaches on every deck," Roy Davis reported. "We're losing structural integrity." "Fire control is offline," Amy Foster said. "I can't aim our weapons anymore." "Navigation is damaged," Lisa Park added. "I'm flying blind." Jake looked around his bridge. Half the control panels were dark or sparking. The lights flickered on and off. The air was getting thin because life support was failing. His crew was wounded and exhausted, but they kept working. "Pete, how much time left on the reactor?" Jake asked. 5 minutes, Captain. The explosion will be bigger than I thought. We've taken so much damage that the containment field is completely gone. When this thing goes off, it'll be like a small star being born. 5 minutes to live." Jake thought about his wife Sarah and his boys Tommy and Kevin back on Earth. He wished he could see them one more time, but he was glad they would be safe because of what his crew was doing today. "Danny, can you still send messages?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, short range only," Danny Wright replied. "Send a message to Admiral Carter. Tell her we bought them some time. Tell her to make it count." The Defiance continued its charge toward the enemy flagship. More enemy ships moved to block their path, but Jake flew straight through their formation. Some of the red ships had to move aside to avoid being rammed. 3 minutes to reactor explosion," Pete announced. 2 minutes to target, Lisa said. The enemy flagship, the Worldbreaker, was now so close that it filled their entire front screen. It was a massive ship, bigger than some of Earth's cities. Its armor was thick and its weapons were powerful enough to destroy planets. "Sir," Tim Brooks said, "the enemy flagship is trying to move away from us." "Too late," Jake said grimly. "Lisa, take us right up to their engine section. If we're going to explode, let's make sure we take their most important ship with us." Commander Zektar realized his ship could not escape in time. The human vessel was too close and moving too fast. "All hands, brace for impact," he ordered. Then he did something he had never done before in battle. He saluted the enemy. "You fought well, humans," he said quietly. On the Defiance, alarms were screaming so loudly that people had to shout to be heard. The ship was shaking apart around them, but the crew stayed at their stations. 1 minute to explosion, Pete called out. 30 seconds to target, Lisa announced. Jake stood up from his captain's chair and looked at each member of his bridge crew. They were young men and women who had volunteered to die for their world. They deserved to know how proud he was of them. "It has been an honor to serve with all of you," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Today, 800 humans showed the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Amy Foster managed to get one weapon working again. She fired their last plasma beam at the enemy flagship. It wasn't a powerful shot, but it was their final act of defiance. 10 seconds to target, Lisa said. 10 seconds to explosion, Pete added. Jake sat back down and gripped his chair. Hold on, everyone. We're going to light up the galaxy. The Defiance crashed into the side of the world breaker at tremendous speed. For a moment, both ships were locked, together like two giant beasts fighting to the death. Then the human ship's fusion reactor exploded. The blast was visible from Mars. It was like a new star being born and dying in the same instant. The explosion vaporized the Defiance completely and tore a massive hole in the side of the enemy flagship. Commander, Zektar had just enough time to see the bright light coming toward him before everything went white. When the light faded, both ships were gone. In their place was an expanding cloud of glowing gas and twisted metal. The explosion had also damaged or destroyed 15 other enemy ships that were too close to escape. The remaining Vekthari fleet stopped moving. For the first time in their history of conquest, they had witnessed something that challenged everything they believed about war and victory. A single human ship had destroyed their most powerful vessel and their greatest commander. The explosion faded slowly, leaving behind a cloud of glowing metal and gas where two great warships had died together. The remaining Vekthari fleet floated in space, their crews staring in shock at the empty spot where their flagship had been. Sub-Commander Velkun now led the enemy fleet. He was younger than Zektar and had never lost a battle before today. His hand shook as he looked at the tactical display, showing the damage the humans had caused. Status report, he ordered. 37 ships destroyed, or damaged beyond repair, his sensor officer reported. The world breaker is completely gone. Commander Zektar is dead. Velkun could not believe what he was hearing. One small human ship had destroyed more than half of their advance fleet. The humans had shown no fear, no hesitation, no thought of surrender. They had fought like beings possessed by some terrible purpose. Sir, what are your orders? His weapons officer asked. Velkun was quiet for a long moment. Every other race the Vekthari had conquered had shown fear when facing their superior numbers and technology. They had begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. The humans had simply attacked without warning and fought until they died. Send a message to the main fleet, Velkun finally said. Tell them we need to study these humans more carefully before we advance on their homeworld. Sir, we still have enough ships to destroy Earth, his tactical officer pointed out. Do we? Velkun asked. If one human ship can do this much damage, what will 100 human ships do? What about 1,000? For the first time in Vekthari history, an invasion fleet chose to withdraw and wait. They had always won through overwhelming force and technological superiority, but the humans had shown them something new. Warriors who became more dangerous the more desperate their situation became. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Helen Carter received the final transmission from the Defiance. The message was short and crackling with static from the battle damage, but every word was clear. Admiral, this is Captain Morrison. We've engaged the enemy advance fleet in the asteroid belt. We've destroyed their flagship and damaged many of their ships. This should give you several hours to prepare Earth's defenses. Tell our families we did our duty. Morrison out. Carter wiped tears from her eyes as she played the message for her staff. 800 brave souls had sacrificed themselves to buy time for Earth. She would not waste that gift. Send messages to every human colony, every space station, every ship in our fleet, she ordered. Tell them what the Defiance accomplished today. Tell them that humans can fight these red ships and win. The news of the battle spread quickly throughout human space. On Earth, people gathered around television screens and computer displays to hear the story of Captain Jake Morrison and his crew. The tale grew larger with each telling. In the outer colonies, transport ships full of evacuated families received the news as they fled toward the inner solar system. Children who had been crying for their lost homes now listened with wide eyes to stories of the brave ship that had stopped the red tide. On military bases throughout human space, soldiers and spaceship crews heard about the battle and felt something they had not felt in months. Hope. If 800 humans could destroy half an enemy fleet, then maybe the war was not hopeless after all. But the most important reaction came from other alien races scattered across the galaxy. For years they had hidden from the Vekthari Empire, too scared to fight back. Now radio signals began arriving from distant worlds. The Zentorians, who had lost their homeworld but still had ships hiding in deep space, sent a message offering to share their quantum weapon technology with humans. The crystal beings of the Helix Collective, thought to be extinct, revealed that some of their people had survived and wanted to join the fight against the red ships. Even races that humans had never heard of began sending messages. They had all suffered under Vectari rule, but none had dared to resist until they saw what the crew of the Defiance had accomplished. 6 months passed. The Vectari main fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, studying human tactics and trying to understand how such a small force had caused so much damage. They sent scout ships to probe human defenses, but every probe was met by improved human vessels using technology shared by grateful alien allies. Admiral Carter stood in the command center on Earth's largest space station, looking at displays showing the current military situation. The time bought by the Defiance had been used well. Earth now had 3 times as many warships as before, all equipped with better weapons and armor designed with alien help. "Admiral," her aide reported, "long-range sensors detect the enemy fleet moving toward Earth again. But this time they're advancing much more slowly and carefully." Carter smiled grimly. "Good, let them be careful. Let them worry about what surprises we might have waiting for them." The truth was that humans now had many surprises. Centaurian quantum torpedoes that could phase through enemy shields, Helix energy weapons that could repair themselves if damaged, defensive technologies from a dozen different alien races who had all suffered under Vectari rule. But more important than the new technology was the new attitude. Human crews no longer felt hopeless when facing superior numbers. They had proof that courage and determination could overcome any odds. The story of the Defiance had become a legend that inspired every human warrior. On distant worlds, alien resistance groups had begun forming. They painted pictures of the Defiance on their hidden bases and told stories of the humans who had shown them that the Vectari could be beaten. Rebellion was spreading across the galaxy for the first time in centuries. The Vectari Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just months before, now faced something they had never encountered. An enemy that inspired others to fight back. Every world they attacked now fought harder, knowing that resistance was possible. Sub-Commander Velkun still led the Vectari fleet advancing on Earth. He had spent months studying human tactics and preparing for battle, but in his private moments he remembered the sight of that small human ship, charging straight into certain death without hesitation. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," his communication officer reported. "Put it on the main screen," Velkun ordered. Admiral Carter's face appeared, looking calm and confident. "This is Admiral Helen Carter of Earth Defense Command. I have a message for your fleet." Velkun was surprised. The humans wanted to talk instead of just fighting. Maybe they had learned wisdom since the asteroid belt battle. 6 months ago, you destroyed one of our ships and killed 800 of our people," Carter continued. "Today, we're going to return the favor. The difference is we learned from Captain Morrison and his crew that sometimes the best way to win a war is to be willing to die for what you believe in." The transmission ended, and Velkun's sensors immediately detected hundreds of human ships rising from behind Earth's moon. But these were not the same type of vessels the Vectari had faced before. They were bigger, faster, and armed with weapons that glowed with the combined technology of a dozen different alien races. "Sir," his tactical officer said with fear in his voice, "the human fleet is advancing on our position, and I'm detecting similar fleets approaching from 6 other directions." Velkun realized that the humans had used their 6 months of preparation time to gather allies from across the galaxy. The war had changed from a simple conquest to something much more dangerous, a rebellion that threatened the entire Vectari Empire. As the human fleet approached, Velkun could see that the lead ship was painted with the words UES Defiance 2 on its hull. The humans had named their newest and most powerful vessel after the ship that had started this new phase of the war. The legend of 800 heroes had become something greater than anyone could have imagined. It had become the spark that would light a fire of freedom across the entire galaxy.